The economist Kevin Lings, Musa, predicting, and I think you hardly ever hear economists use this word, I guess they do from time to time, predicting that the tax picture that Enoch Godongwana will present will be, quote unquote, spectacular. Spectacular. Do you share that optimism?
Sure. I wouldn't necessarily call it spectacular. I think if I look at all the fiscal metrics right now, the case for any tax increases actually is very minimal. I'm not expecting anything spectacular from a tax perspective. And the reason for that is actually clear, Mr. Smilane. I mean, if you look at where we are in terms of the revenue collection, there's an expectation that will come close to what, about 200 billion of excess tax that will be collected, and that is fueled largely by the commodity prices that continue to surge. If I break that down and I look at what is the contribution of the different tax types, you look at where PAYE is at the moment, that's contributing about 40%, plus or minus 40% of our total taxes. And if you again break that down and try and understand what is the makeup of that, you will see that unfortunately in South Africa, the absence of economic growth and the high rate of unemployment rather, is actually creating a huge problem for us, because only about 7 million South Africans are actually contributing to that 40% of PAYE. And let's take one step back and look at corporate income tax, which is the third largest contributor to our taxes. And if you look at what is happening with the corporate taxes, they actually have been declining for a long time. And the reason for that is simple. You know, corporate tax is based on the profits that companies are making because they are making profit. And the problem, again, that we have had in South Africa is that we just simply haven't had the sustainable growth where companies are, making sufficient profits and therefore are able to pay corporate tax. Again, I take one step back and I look at VAT and I see whether there's any spectacular announcement that one should expect there. I simply can't see that. Yeah. You know, firstly, because VAT obviously is a very politicized type of tax, and you will need a broader consensus to agree that that should even be going up. So overall, if I'm just looking at the tax picture, I definitely do not see anything that will come close to being spectacular at all. I think where the focus...
Sorry, Musa. Yeah. I think in fairness, Kevin Lings was talking about the revenue collection aspect, the 200 billion rand more collected than had initially been projected. That's what he was describing as spectacular. But given the picture, the nice picture that you paint for me in terms of your own expectations around collection and the various categories of tax that will be, at play when the finance minister delivers his budget, juxtaposing that with the responsibilities of the state, the debt repayments, interest on debt, but also the socio-economic responsibilities, including this, extension of the social relief of distress grant that has now been announced. Where do you believe there's room to maneuver for the finance minister to raise much needed revenue over and above what Kevin Lings says will be spectacular in as far as, revenue collection? We can still raise a bit more. Where does he have room to maneuver in terms of the categories of tax?
Again, let me take one step back, and I can't see that actually tax is going to help the minister at all right now, for the reason that, we are at a stage where, unfortunately, we lack economic growth, because without economic growth, you're not necessarily going to be having any tax. You're not going to have the spectacular taxes that we are talking about. I think where the room actually is, though, it's probably focusing not so much on raising the taxes, but rather on capacitating SARS. And that is actually very important, because if you look at where we are in terms of the collections, I think there's about 20 or 30 billion of the close to 200 billion that has been collected in excess of what was estimated. That's actually driven poorly by the efficiencies that are happening at SARS. The focus that SARS is putting on doing targeted audits, looking at anti-avoidance transactions, things like transfer pricing. So if there is a room for the minister to maneuver, I think it will be around capacitating SARS. Secondly, it will be around making sure that we are increasing a tax base. We are increasing the tax base, because that's also very important. And let me also say this, actually the importance of fixing state-owned entities from a tax perspective cannot be underestimated. And the reason I'm saying that, Mr. Smilane, it's because if you actually just take one step back and think about where these state-owned entities are coming from and where they are now, I mean, I will tell you that whether we're talking about Eskom, whether we're talking about Transnet, we're talking about the SAA, we're talking about Denel, the reality is that all these are tax-paying entities. And if they can be fixed and be functioning properly, there is absolutely no doubt that they will be contributing positively to our tax coffers.
Musa, I've got to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. Fascinating conversation, and I look forward to talking to you a bit more in the days, weeks and months to come.